Hello everyone, welcome to this week's Astrology News Report, an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic astrology, presented by yours truly, Ron Berger. Today is October 8th, 2017. In this segment, we'll take a look at the week that was and see how the planets' patterns in the zodiac can help us to understand the past week's events. As I explained in last week's October 1st report, there were some pretty powerful planetary patterns operating in the zodiac during the first couple of weeks of October. Mars conjunct Venus, Mercury opposite a full moon, Mars square to Saturn, and it didn't take long for things to manifest. Late on Sunday evening, October 1st, there was the horrific mass shooting in Las Vegas. Here's the astrology chart of when the shooting began. Note that Saturn, the planet of suffering, is exactly opposite, and thus heavily influencing, the ascendant degree, which is itself in the lunar sign Mrigashira, a sign associated with seeking pleasure. The ruler of the chart, the ruler of the rising sign Taurus, is Venus, which is combined with Mars, the planet of violence. In the 12th house, the house of the unknown, is Uranus, the planet of unexpected events, which, by being in Mars's sign, Aries, contributes its troublesome energy to the Mars-Venus conjunction. Neptune is positioned at the top of the chart in the 10th house of public actions. Neptune, the planet of mystery and confusion, is directly aspecting the Mars-Venus conjunction. There was initial confusion when concert-goers mistook the gunfire for firecrackers, uncertainty about where it was coming from, and a week later still a lot of mystery about the shooter's motives for committing this massacre. So let's see what Vedic astrology can offer in the way of analysis to help determine why this guy did such a heinous act. Stephen Paddock was born in Clinton, Iowa on April 9th, 1953. Thanks to the fact that the state of Iowa makes publicly available the entire birth certificate, we do have his birth time, 11:05 a.m. This gives a Gemini rising chart with some really strange planetary combinations. Gemini is the most dual sign of the zodiac, capable of saying one thing while thinking something else, and with the ability to conceal the emotions. Note Uranus is closely conjunct with his ascendant degree, indicating a idiosyncratic, potentially volatile personality. By all accounts, this guy was intelligent and did well for himself, but led a rather eccentric life. Obviously, he also had to have a rather twisted mentality in order to commit the atrocity he did. In Vedic astrology, the planet ruling the rising sign is the main significator of self, and therefore, that planet's condition sets the tone for the person's life. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, the ascendant sign, and therefore the ruler of the chart. Mercury resides in Purvabhadra, a lunar sign known for having a fascination with the dark side. One of the symbols for Purvabhadra is a human head with two faces, one looking outwards and smiling, the other looking inwards with a diabolical expression, suggesting a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of personality. This is the lunar sign most frequently featured in the charts of criminals and murderers. This sign is also very persevering, indicating a relentless pursuit of one's goals, however unwholesome they may be. On the esoteric level, it signifies going through great pain in order to purify the soul. Another astrological combination in this chart that suggests bad behavior is having the moon in the 8th house, which encourages 8th house significations, such as preoccupation with death, big changes in life, chronic conditions, and clandestine operations. Having the natal moon placed in the 8th house destroys a person's emotional composure. The moon is the subjective mind and the emotions. Note that directly opposite to his moon lies natal Pluto. Pluto is considered to have a Shiva-like quality with great power, signifying complete destruction. When Pluto influences the moon directly, a person wants to feel powerful, but also feels wronged by others, and wants to punish those he holds responsible. Pluto is also a planet with generational significance, in other words, giving rise to acts which have large-scale consequences. In mundane astrology, Pluto is the planet of massacres. According to Vedic astrology's planetary period system, in this year, 2017, Mr. Paddock was in the moon sub-period of his Mercury major period, thereby activating both of these problematic combinations in his chart. Now consider the influence of the transit on the fateful day. In September, the lunar nodes have changed signs, thereby lining up with his natal Moon-Pluto combination. Ketu, the significator of past karmas, came into the end of Capricorn, where it conjuncts his natal moon, while simultaneously Rahu, the north node, signifying obsession, conjuncts his natal Pluto. Thus, the transit of the nodal axis triggered this destructive pattern in his natal chart. Additionally, Mars, planet of action, and Venus, planet of desire, were transiting in Leo, his third house of self-efforts, and simultaneously opposite and afflicting his natal Mercury, adding to his murderous thinking. Uranus was exactly conjunct his natal Venus, indicating the need for some vicarious excitement. Uranus was simultaneously directly opposite to his natal Saturn, a pattern that causes rebellion against the established order. So, here we have an intelligent, tenacious, troubled individual plagued by strange, diabolical thoughts and obsessed with delusions of power, who at this time got triggered by a planetary arrangement that emphasized the worst features of his birth chart, prompting him to follow through with his monstrous scheme. Also last Tuesday, nearly 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico, Trump finally paid a visit to the U.S. territory. Evidently, the depths of the president's callousness hadn't yet been reached. Upon arriving, he announced to the beleaguered nation, "I hate to tell you, Puerto Rico, but you've thrown our budget a little out of whack." Meaning what exactly? That it's Puerto Rico's fault that they got whacked by Mother Nature? That a few billion less for billionaires' tax relief is unacceptable? Trump then went further, downplaying Puerto Rico's suffering because it wasn't a real catastrophe like Katrina, where thousands died. His only walking tour was of an upscale San Juan neighborhood with well-built homes which had survived the storm mainly intact. It was, therefore, a Neptune event, in other words, illusory. Note how Neptune was emphasized on that day. The planet of fantasy was conjunct with the moon, planet of feelings, and directly opposed by the Venus-Mars conjunction. The normally compassionate Venus was overwhelmed by harsh Mars, the planet of victory. All through his brief 5-hour visit, Trump sang the praises of his administration's relief efforts and his own response to the storm, continuously claiming, "What a great job we've done," even though a majority of the population is still without power, without phone service, or dependable sources of food or drinking water. Going back to his natal chart, we see how the Mars, Venus, and Moon, Neptune transits were affecting Trump's Leo ascendant, boosting his sense of self with enthusiastic illusions of self-grandeur. Mercury is the planet of information, of data and communication, and it is now in Virgo, the sign of details and analysis. So, aside from whatever else is going on in the zodiac, one would expect some details and information coming from somewhere. And indeed there have been, this time from the Congressional Investigation Committees, regarding their progress on the Russia-U.S. voting interference affair. The topic this past week was the involvement of Facebook and Twitter, and how they unwittingly, or perhaps just stupidly, participated in Russia's attempts to manipulate the election process of the United States by allowing disguised Russian agents to buy targeted advertising on both of these social media platforms, thereby weaponizing what everybody used to assume was just an innocuous social media platform. And there's more Mercury and Virgo stuff. The infamous Steele dossier from back at the beginning of the year has resurfaced yet again, as more of its explosive allegations get corroboration from news sources, with some troubling implications for the Trump campaign's alleged collusion with Russia to influence the election. Seems this dossier has now become an official part of the congressional inquiries, as well as of Robert Mueller's special investigation. Stay tuned for some potentially explosive new items at the end of the week, when Mercury, the planet of reports, will be directly opposite Uranus, the planet of sudden unexpected events. Okay, that's all the time I have for this week, but before closing, a little reminder. It does take a lot of time, effort, work to produce these videos, and I do live in the real world with bills to pay. If you appreciate what this YouTube channel does for you, please help keep it and me going by visiting the donation page and making a contribution. Just click on or touch the donation card you see here. Thanks, and until next week.